Hello, welcome to the Magic. Just kidding. It's a worm. It's a worm. We're talking about worms. Worms with a Y, not worms with an O. But in case you didn't know, I am Lore, and we are here talking all things myth, magic, legends, folklore, gods, goddesses. Yeah. It's a fantasy melting pot here. And right now, I'm taking you with me through my rabbit hole of researching dragons, because as much as I enjoy making these videos for you guys, I do this research for myself. I write books, I write fantasy, and I find inspiration in all sorts of fantastical elements of our world. So, buckle in, because we're talking about worms. Side tangent. I do those. I hope you don't mind, but here we are. Side tangent. In the campaign we're playing with my husband as the DM, we fought a purple worm, and I got some of its spine, I think, and now my character has a purple worm spine whip that has venom in it. Let's talk about it and see if traditional worms are poisonous. I will let you know as we discuss Legends of Fire. That is our segment for dragons. We're on our fourth one, and as we have discovered over the course of discussing these creatures, we have a core starter point, and then from there we've branched off. We have the noble western dragon who is magical and majestic. Your wyvern who's like a pit bull who's just... Okay, I shouldn't say that though. That's generalizing pit bulls. I've actually met some pit bulls, and they're they're sweet, 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 sweet himbos. Okay? Okay. But I'm thinking of a mean, because there are mean dogs out there. I had a mean dog, and he was an English Springer Spaniel, but we also think you're a Cancer disease. See, a tangent. I'm sorry. Okay. My mind is just a flowing thingy with wyvern, vicious, mean, venomous, poisonous. That's the same thing, Lore. Okay, and then you have your drake, earthbound, tiny wings, if winged at all. And maybe not completely earthbound, but you know, he's not going to get very far if he does have wings because they're tiny. And elemental. Power over nature. I don't know why this is not considered a powerful dragon type. Okay, it has power over the elements. Just because it can't go anywhere. I mean, it could slither around. I don't know. It's a lizard. It still has legs. It can still move. Just my opinion. I'm gonna write a story about it, because here we believe in learning about the origins and the basic foundation, and then turning it into our own. And I'm going to turn a drake into the big boss. Maybe not the big boss, because there's more to it than, well, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll just do it out of spite. Okay. And now we're talking about the worm. So, you've heard of the fire-breathing dragon, and the sky-soaring wyverns, and the drake of the earth. But the worm is different. Maybe not so different from the drake. It's earthbound and serpentine, like the drake. But unlike the drake, which is more instinctual, animal, the worm is steeped in death, wisdom, and transformation. So malevolent. Not the same as malevolent, Malevolent is good. You want benevolent. If you want to meet somebody, you want benevolent, not malevolent. Okay? So, today we'll uncover what makes the worm such a compelling figure in myth and legend. Stick around. You may never look at the ground beneath your feet the same way again, because if the drake didn't get you, the worm will. So, what is a worm? Pronounced worm, W-U-R-M. Or if you want to try to get real fancy, go Wyrm. That's not fancy. That's gross. Don't say that. Okay. It's legless. Okay. Not Legolas. Legless. Often wingless, but it's still a dragon. That looks more like a colossal serpent than the four-limbed, fire-breathing dragons we commonly imagine. And unfortunately, it's not utilized in the way that it deserves. I'm thinking Dune. Big worm, massive worm. Instinctual. Rideable. I'm not sure about Tolkien's version. You only see them used as earth eaters in the Battle of the Five Armies, at least if you're going with the more popular pieces of his works. Okay? We know these creatures don't fly. They don't soar through the clouds or lay waste to cities with fire. No. Worms crawl through ancient forests, slither beneath mountains, and coil in forgotten tombs. Oh my gosh. If the worm doesn't inspire your creative mind, your juices. I mean, the drake got me, right? I told you in the last video, I'm gonna write a drake who is A-B-B-B-B-B-E-G. The worm is more ancient, formidable, terrifying. Okay, let me tell you, they are creatures of the deep earth, guardians of long buried truths and secrets. Tombs! Forgotten tombs! Can you imagine if your party, if you play D&D, your party goes down into the tomb and is like, ooh, I'm gonna just loot this here and I'm gonna loot that there. There might be a vampire. There's probably skeletons, maybe zombies. And then you walk up into what you think is just a wall. Except it's not. Okay. The word worm comes from Old English wyrm, meaning serpent or dragon. Okay? That's pretty much the etymology of every name for these dragon types. What's happened? Core dragon split into different types of dragons as cultures have progressed, okay? I'm using a different word than evolved because I used it too many times. All right. It shares linguistic, pull off the I there, linguistic roots with Old Norse ormr, German worm, and even Latin vermis, all pointing to its worm-like, snake-like form. This might be the OG. Arguably. Unlike the flashy, heroic dragons of medieval romances, worms carry with them the weight of primordial fear. You couldn't see, my eyes got big. My ring light is in my glasses. Just a side note, I need to wear my glasses, you guys. I was trying for so long. Didn't do this without my glasses, but I just can't see. Okay, so here are my glasses. So, anyway. Worms carry with them the weight of the primordial fear. They're closer to the original idea of the dragon as a lurking, almost elemental force of nature. We talked about drakes having elemental power. The worm itself is nature. Okay? Can you tell I'm excited? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, let's take this journey through time. In Norse mythology, the worm is epitomized by Jormungandr. I can say that word. I already know this word. The Midgard serpent, okay? This vast creature is said to encircle the entire world, biting its own tail. A cosmic Ouroboros. Jormungandr isn't just a monster. It's a symbol of eternity, of cycles, and the inescapable nature of fate. At Ragnarok, he is fated to fight Thor in a world-ending battle. I know a little bit about Thor. We haven't done Norse god mythology. To be honest, what I do know of him, Marvel kind of got it. I would say, though, true to mythology, Thor's more brash. A little clever, but if I was looking at the two, my money would be on Jormungandr. Okay? I'm also biased because I'm really excited about worms. Put that on a t-shirt. I'm excited about worms. Okay. Anglo-Saxon legend. The most famous worm appears at the end of Beowulf. An ancient treasure-hoarding worm is awakened, and the aging hero must face it in a final, fatal battle. We mentioned this before in previous videos, because what's happened, I've mentioned this so many times. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to try really hard not to say it again. You started with the idea of what a dragon was, and then so there's a lot of crossover. But this worm doesn't speak or fly. It simply is. Okay? We're talking about universe level of power. It is a force of death and destruction and tied to greed and the impermanence of glory. Let that sink in. Impermanence of glory. My elbow fell. Okay. Even in Christian Europe, the worm persists, transformed into a symbol of sin, corruption, and the devil himself. The fact that these dragons dwell underground made them perfect metaphors for the darkness of the underworld. If Hades had a pet, yeah, Cerberus. No. If there were a worm in Hades, Hades would be the worm's pet. Okay? Just my opinion. I almost said a phrase from a true crime broadcaster who I watched. I've watched her so much that this phrase almost just popped out of my mouth, but it's hers, so I'm not going to take it. If you don't know, my YouTube, my personal YouTube, is almost only true crime podcasts. This is a whole nother, just me doing research. What does the worm symbolize? Because of course we have to talk about that. It's a lot more than just a monstrous threat. They represent decay and corruption, forces that slowly break down the world. We see it in our world today. We can all, well, no, because that would take away accountability. We can't blame it on a worm that nobody knows about, who's just sitting under the earth's crust, corrupting everybody and anybody. That would take away accountability. So we're not going to do that. But symbolic, let's say. That's why we need to be kind. Because we just have too much of the worm in our world. Okay? I'm really excited to write a worm into one of my stories. I just don't know which one. I just might have to start something new. But I have to finish the stuff I've already got going, or my beta readers and my friends and my husband are going to be very upset. Okay. Aside from these negative things, the worm also symbolizes hidden wisdom, the kind that lies buried, or forgotten. We've also got transformation, which we mentioned before. They are metaphors for cycles: life, death, rebirth. Jormungandr, like head, tail, worm. Okay. In alchemy, the Ouroboros, a dragon or serpent, eating its own tail, like I think Jormungandr is eating its own tail. I think it's depicted that way. Regardless, it's a classical image, so it represents infinity and the eternal return. So you kind of like a ring, kind of like your ring, yeah. We are wearing a worm, an Ouroboros, to symbolize our. Well, it's not. The worm isn't a symbol of well, it kind of is a symbol of eternity, life, death, rebirth. I don't know. I mean, it talks about infinity and the eternal return. So yeah. Worm, Ouroboros. I don't know. I'm making stuff up as I go. So while the worm might seem simple, just a big, legless dragon, it holds enormous symbolic weight. It's not just a creature. It's a concept. Like, almost too big of a concept to truly comprehend. It's so, in my mind, it is so big. So ancient, primitive, primal. So some famous worms and legends. We talked about Jormungandr. It encircles the world. When he lifts his tail, the end begins. His poison will kill Thor even after being slain. So this is a lose-lose situation. He is the storm beneath calm seas, the worm that waits at the end of time. Okay. Fafnir. I mentioned in my last video that I see Fafnir as more as a drake. But for the sake of argument, because we know there's a lot of crossover before dragons were kind of separated into these different categories. From the Norse myth, again, lots of dragons in the Norse mythology, or mythos, or pantheon. As we have mentioned several times before, Fafnir just keeps coming up because he crosses over. He becomes a worm of greed, or a drake of greed, or a wyvern of greed, or a western dragon of greed. He's a dragon of greed. But this we didn't mention before. Fafnir murders his own father for gold. So that's what happens. He just doesn't lust over gold. He actually unalives his kin, his flesh and blood. And because of that, he transforms into a venomous, slithering dragon. His hoard is cursed. His body is corrupted. He is no longer a man, but an embodiment of avarice itself. So in that way, you can argue worm makes the most sense. Because though drakes aren't necessarily good by nature, they're more animal in nature. And if you're taking the sentience of Fafnir into consideration, he was a dwarf. So obviously a humanoid thinking individual. This maybe fits a worm more in that he's still he might still be an intelligent creature. It really depends on where you want to go with this, because depending on which category you decide to put Fafnir in, maybe he does lose all of his thinking ability. Maybe he is no longer intelligent or sentient. That is the problem with my brain, because I have this need and driven desire to fix plot holes. And when you have ancient legends that rely on the origin of a concept which gets broken down into different categories, you're now looking, where do I put him? Because he can fit here for this reason, he can fit there for this reason. I would say not so much a western dragon. Not so much a wyvern. Drake or worm, but he's not ancient enough for me to be a worm. Worm to me is before even the world begins. Maybe the world is created around a worm or something, or it's one of the first creatures that finds its way into the earth. Like, because of how ancient I imagine a worm, Fafnir doesn't quite fit there. So I'm still going to say Drake. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Fafnir has come up a lot. So where, after hearing about these 4, would you put him? We're going to talk about more later. I don't know if he'll come up again, but we'll find out. Let's make Fafnir a bit of a discussion. What do you think? And everybody be kind to each other. We're all entitled to our opinions. We don't have to be like mean about it. This isn't real life. This is a creative endeavor. So tell me, what kind of dragon do you think Fafnir fits at this point? Do you agree with me, where you think more Drake and maybe he just lost his sentience? Or do you disagree with me, where worms aren't as old and ominous as my juices have decided they are? It's okay to have a different opinion. Let me know. But be nice about it, okay? Only kindness here. And also, I just like to hear other people's opinions on these things. It's really cool to have different concepts and ideas. It's so long as we can be healthy about it, I'm all for learning about what other people think about these things, because it helps me to decide. Maybe you can change my mind. The Lambton worm. This has also come up at least once, but this is an English folktale. Tells of a young nobleman who catches a strange creature while fishing. Disgusted, he throws it into a well. Years later, the creature has grown into a monstrous worm that coils itself around a hill and devours livestock. The hero must return and atone, defeating the beast he unwittingly unleashed. In I think it was the wyvern or wyvern, the wyvern one, where it was now disease that happens. So the interesting thing about these creatures and them being a different category of, or a subclass, you can say, of the same origin, you get a different take on how it all works and explaining. And that's the way it is with a lot of mythology, is that these things are created, stories are created to explain the phenomena that is happening in your real life. It becomes a symbol. And so you can argue any way by creating your own version of something. And that is what we encourage here. Remember, if you see in my other videos, you take the original idea and you build off of it and make it your own. And we've seen that now in the Lambton worm. You have 2 different versions, and they're both legitimate because they're about 2 different concepts of the same idea. It's okay. So looking deeper into the psyche, the Uniga, I need to look up how to say this word. It's the second time that I've tried to talk about it. Okay. Jungian. I was saying it very wrong. I'm sure somebody's corrected me already, but there we are. Jungian psychology. The worm represents the shadow self, the hidden, often uncomfortable truths we bury. Fighting a worm is not just slaying a beast, it is confronting what lies beneath our own consciousness. In literature, worms serve as guardians of buried treasure, be it literal gold or symbolic wisdom. They are the final obstacle, the last trial, the ancient test that heroes must pass to gain enlightenment or closure. Though less common than traditional dragons, worms appear in modern fantasy too. So here we are, pop culture. In the Elder Scrolls, Alduin is a world-eating worm rooted in Norse mythology. In Dungeons & Dragons, you have great worms, which are the oldest, most powerful dragons, emphasizing ancient age and elemental wisdom. Though, if I'm thinking about it correctly, the great worms actually look more like Western dragons. So here you have another example where you're taking the original concept, merging it, twisting it, baking it, turning it into something else. So you have a great worm, ancient wisdom, all powerful, and but it's taking on a different physical form. So even Smaug in Tolkien's The Hobbit, he's often called a worm, though he has wings and his he's not as, again, I'm stuck. This is a me problem. I'm stuck on worms, at least, I don't know, because you also have like small worms, you know, I don't know. I have a concept of what I want to use, and so now I'm stuck there, and I need to unstick myself. So, Smaug is called a worm, and he shares attributes that a worm has, which is hoarding, brooding, corrupting. He's got a very worm-like nature. So this would be another case in which you would marry a Western dragon with a worm, much like Dungeons and Dragons. However, that's the book version, because like we mentioned before, Peter Jackson gave him more of a wyvern appearance. Double check on myself. That's kind of where worms show up. You've got Dune, Battle of the Five Armies, and then just some other references that we've already mentioned. Now, if you want to explore more worm lore, there are some excellent sources through Beowulf, translated by Seamus Heaney. But if you are a Tolkien fan, he also did a Beowulf book. It's out there. I think I even have it, and I just haven't read it yet. I have so many books I'm trying to read. It's on my list. But you also have The Myth of the Dragon by David Jones, Bullfinch's Mythology, Dictionary of Northern Mythology by Rudolf Simek, and Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols. I actually want to grab some of these ancient worms. Older than the gods, older than primordial beings. That is the way I see a worm, which is why I was so excited about it. That's it for the worm. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you are having fun. This is all that this is. Just have fun. Please be kind in both the comments and in life. We have enough darkness in our world. So go out there and be the beauty and the light, like I know you can be. And if you have any fun ideas, let me know. If there's anything you want to explore that I haven't gotten to yet, other pantheons, other mythological creatures, I did have a list. This is my rabbit hole segment. So, because there are way more to dragons than, I knew there were so many more dragons out there than just your dragon, but it became a whole thing. So here we are. I hope you've been enjoying it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.